Are the Oregon Ducks and Dan Lanning poised to take another step towards a title in 24 and 25? And this is a question I pose as a lean. I feel like Oregon's got some momentum, but then at the same time, I look at the roster and I'm thinking, okay, I still see a couple little spots here and there that are going to need to be addressed to go make an actual title run. But overall, man, I've got to say, I am super impressed with Dan Lanning, and I know it's said a lot, and obviously everybody else is too. I mean, the dude's on national TV making picks, but I'm just I'm in love with the path that he took. It's almost a Kirby Smart-esque path where it's like we were actually kind of talking about something before the show started on here before we went live and had nothing to do with this, but you were talking about somebody hiring somebody on potential alone, and that's essentially what Oregon did with Dan Lanning. I mean, this guy was hired. I mean, he'd been in college football a long time, obviously, seen some great programs, Alabama, Georgia, been around titles, all that good stuff. But this was a gamble. I mean, we see guys come out of Nick Saban and Kirby Smart programs that don't make it. Okay, it happens all the time. Head coaching's not for everybody. But Dan Lanning has just took the bull by the horns. He's recruiting, he's hitting the transfer portal, and on top of all that, he's winning now. Um, one thing that I saw this past week, we saw Bo Nix play in the Senior Bowl. And I think a lot of the thoughts that I had about Bo Nix when he was in college continue to be true. I think he's a good quarterback. I don't think he's great. Okay. Um, if the Oregon Ducks can level up in quarterback play this year and then overall just be as talented as they were last year, I think they got a really good shot to win the Big Ten, Mason. I think they got a really good shot, just as good a shot as anybody. It's gonna come down to that Ohio State game on that schedule, and I'll pull the schedule up here in a minute and we can talk about it. But they've got a path to win the Big Ten the very first year that they're there. What do you think about that?
I think you're completely right. Going back to Dan Lanning, he's so relatable, it feels like, right? And maybe it's because we're somewhat close in age. I think he's 36, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
38, maybe 36, somewhere in that range. I'm 32. I'll be 33 this year. And, seeing his path, like you mentioned, where he wasn't really a successful college player and kind of worked his way up, through the ranks and was hired on at Oregon. And I thought it was interesting. I heard an interview this week with him, and when he was interviewing with Oregon, he said, he told the administration there, he said, look, y'all can go hire somebody who's been coaching for a long time and maybe has won a bunch, but college football is changing. Wouldn't
Yeah.
you rather have someone who is young and can grow with the times and isn't established and, is still learning and things, and is very fluid in their coaching, you know, methods and can change things up. And that's exactly what we've seen from him. He's been very honest and very vocal about how he made some mistakes last year, specifically against Washington. So I think that he's an excellent coach. I think that he's recruiting at such a high level, and you're completely right. I think that in the Big Ten this year, there's a tier one, which is Ohio State at one, Oregon at two. I think it's pretty clear that based on roster and coaching staff and everything, I think it's pretty clear that Ohio State's a little bit ahead of Oregon right now. But there's not another team other than Oregon that can beat Ohio State in the Big Ten, I think, with any reasonable odds in the 2024 season. You look at Michigan, they're returning a lot on defense, really, but they've lost a ton on offense, and they've lost a lot of their coaching staff. And they've got the toughest schedule that we've seen them have in a decade. So I think that all of those things will kind of play itself out, and I think that Michigan's going to have a pretty tough season this year. There's not another team certainly that's coming over with the type of momentum that Oregon is. I would have said Washington had Kalen DeBoer stayed, but with all the change that's going on there, I can't really put Washington in that mix. So to me, there's a significant drop off between tier one of Ohio State and Oregon and everybody else. I think that's the matchup to watch this year in the Big Ten.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so I'm just looking here at this Ohio State schedule, and I don't think I think we're headed towards an Oregon Ohio State clash, and they're going to play in the regular season, and it's going to be in Eugene, and I think that game's going to go a long way in deciding who's going to represent the Big Ten in the Big Ten championship game in Indianapolis. Now, like I said, Ohio State's schedule doesn't seem a whole lot harder to me now that I look at it. I'm not seeing where they pick up one of the new. I see they got Oregon, but I don't see USC on here. I don't see UCLA on here. So I think it's going to come down to those two teams. Now, we do have some coaching changes at Oregon that I wanted to kind of go over here for just a second. So you've got Will Stein as offensive coordinator, who was just pictured there just a second ago. And then the Tosh Lupoy, he's the defensive coordinator, came from, I think, the Jags in the NFL. And he was there last year, so he'll continue to grow with that defense. But you got Chris Hampton added as co-defensive coordinator, and Junior Adams that is added as co-offensive coordinator. So those will be some names to kind of watch out for this year and see how they do and how things continue to progress for the Oregon Ducks. But the addition of Evan Stewart as well. I mean, they needed somebody to replace Troy Franklin. Bam, taken care of. Bucky Irvin is coming back, right? I think he's coming back. Or is he? No, is he going to the NFL?
I don't recall seeing him in like the Senior Bowl or anything.
Yeah, I think
he may have sat out for, but
I think he's coming back. And you're going to pick up Dillon Gabriel at quarterback. You pick up a badass backup quarterback. I like this team. You need a big ass run stopper in the middle. You need a guy that can absorb blocks in this defense. This is the Georgia defense brought out to the West Coast. That's what they're trying to run. That's the program they're trying to implement. Same as Alabama, same as Georgia. Those teams have record-setting defenses when they have a Jalen Carter in the middle, a Mount Cody in the middle. The other big number 99 big boy, Jordan Davis. That's whenever these defenses are extremely successful in championship caliber games and the regular season. I think Oregon needs to address that. But with that schedule, they've got Ohio State at home this year. They do have to go to Michigan, but Michigan continues to lose. They lost Jesse Minter. They've lost their offensive coordinator becomes their head coach. They lost several players, lost their quarterback, lost both their running backs. So going to be a bit of a rebuild, I believe, for Michigan this year. It's wide open, man. It's wide open. And I think Oregon is, barring gruesome injury or something, I think they're a lock for the 12-team playoff this year, as of right now.
I agree.
We haven't done spring football yet, so we got to. But if I was making a ranking right now, they're probably in the top 6, don't you think?
I think so. And just to be clear for everybody at home, Bucky Irvin is entering the draft. Actually, he decided to. He played in their bowl game, but he's going to the draft. So, which is a little bit interesting. I think that they've got some good pieces. Jordan James, I think, is a better running back than Bucky Irvin personally. But they've got to have somebody outside of him. I was trying to scroll through. They did get a transfer come in.
Teams to watch in the spring for sure.
Yeah, Yeah, they do bring in a transfer from Northwest Missouri State, Jay Harris, running back, 6'2", 215. Good size on him. He was an unrated recruit coming out of high school and ended up being a 3-star there. So a guy who's trending upwards, which is what you like if you're getting someone out of a JUCO route like this. So maybe some potential there. Obviously, good size. But
You know what they say about
maybe
those
he's the
guys
answer.
from Northwest Missouri State, right?
What's that?
No, I don't. I was hoping you knew. I
No,
haven't heard anybody come from there ever.
no, didn't know that was a school.
Did not know that was the school. So,
Right.
yeah, no. I look. You don't know where these guys are going to come from. I mean, you don't. You have no idea. So I joke and I kid, but uh,
But
I trust that Dan Lanning is going to have put a good team out there, and I really am going to look closely at this team come springtime. I want to see that offensive line, and I want to see that defensive line. That's where I
right.
think this team needs to improve.
I agree. And, they do bring in Houston transfer Jamari Caldwell, another guy who was unranked. And as a transfer portal player, he's a 4-star, right? That's a pretty good, movement upward. So I think that he's one that can fill that defensive line spot. And then also one that kind of slid up under the radar with all the other news that was going on. But Jabbar Muhammad, cornerback out of Washington.
Yeah, I like him a lot, Mason.
He's really, really good.
Yeah.
And I think he's another guy that's trending up. He's a lockdown corner, and I think that he's probably the most impactful transfer player that they have. And that says a lot when you've got Dillon Gabriel coming in to play quarterback and Evan Stewart, who's going to be his pass catcher. So, but I don't sleep on Jabbar Muhammad. I think he's an excellent grab. And also on the other side, out of UTSA, they got Cam Alexander, another big lockdown corner. So they sure up on the outside. I'm sure that part of their thinking was we're about to go face Ohio State, right? The best wide receivers in college football. Let's get our secondary straight, right?
Yeah.
On top of that, they go and get a safety. Let's see. Aaron Flowers is a guy out of Forney, Texas, who's projected to come in and play right away. He's 6 foot 200, 4-star. One of their, it's really their best recruit overall in this class, I would say, given that Gatlin Bear, the 5-star wide receiver that they got just a couple days ago, he's probably not going to play in the 2024 season. He's going to go on a mission trip, but I think that Aaron Flowers is going to step in right away and shore up that secondary. So a lot of that back end of that defense is going to be shored up. And then they get some pieces on offense as well. It's just this incoming class, both transfer portal and recruiting, they just got the right pieces, it seems like, of the puzzle to make things work. And I didn't mention a couple of offensive line players as well. It's just a really good class coming in, number 4 in the recruiting cycle overall. And I think that's where Dan Lanning is going to live out in Eugene, and with those NIL dollars from Nike, being a Nike school and all, they're going to do really well moving forward in recruiting and in the transfer portal.
Yeah. Yeah. As I said, team to watch for sure as the spring goes on, and see how all those pieces fit together. It sure does seem like they're putting together a nice little puzzle there in Eugene as they go into the Big Ten for the 2024 season.